I believe the famous song goes, "Ding dong, the witch is dead," and while that may not be exactly true, Kathleen Kennedy is now reported to be on her way out the door, with her legacy in utter ruins. And try as they might, even the industry trades can't cover that up. Let's dive in. This video is sponsored by Surfshark. Many in Hollywood will to this day repeat the mantra that Kathleen Kennedy is one of the greatest producers of all time, if not the greatest. But at this point, I don't think even the ones saying that the loudest actually believe it. The movies all that praise is heaped upon her for were all made in the 80s, and funnily enough, they were all produced by her husband Frank Marshall, and lest we forget, they were also produced or directed by either Steven Spielberg or George Lucas. It's almost as if all she did was tag along for the ride, and that anyone who happened to be in that position could steal that valor equally well. Because when left in charge of Lucasfilm, she oversaw what is arguably the single greatest failure and collapse in entertainment history, and as we are about to see here, nothing can hide that fact. I think Lucasfilm under her management may even have had a bigger role in the collapse of Disney Plus than did Marvel, driving millions away from streaming and back to the high seas. Though obviously, neither we at Midnight's Edge nor any of our sponsors condone anyone taking to the high seas. I mean, it's wrong for one thing, and just think of all of the spyware, malware, and other assorted tracking software you'd run the additional risk of being subjected to, even beyond your normal browsing. There's a fix though. To protect yourself, you need to protect your data, and a good way of doing that is through a VPN, such as the one delivered by this channel's sponsor, Surfshark, which you can visit at surfshark.com/midnight. A VPN, or virtual private network, is a privacy protection tool which encrypts your online data and secures your personal information, even when you're on a free public Wi-Fi, which is a goldmine for anyone wanting your data. Surfshark masks your IP address so that your location, download history, and other data isn't linked to your personal ID, while their clean web feature blocks trackers, malware, and phishing attempts, enabling you to surf safely. Best of all, unlike some other VPN providers out there, Surfshark does not monitor, track, or store what you do online. There's no activity log. In addition to providing online safety, Surfshark also liberates your internet by unblocking blocked websites and enabling you to bypass geo-blocking restrictions by changing the country you access the internet from, which gives some great advantages when it comes to streaming. For instance, you can access 15 different Netflix libraries, all with a different selection of movies and TV series simply by changing your virtual location. And there are many to choose from, as Surfshark has over 3,200 servers in more than 100 countries around the world. It gets even better though. If you use our link, surfshark.com/midnight, that triggers an exclusive special offer of 4 extra months for free. So, secure your privacy with Surfshark. Just head on over to surfshark.com/midnight to order. Link is in the description. Surfshark also offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk in trying it out at surfshark.com/midnight. Thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring this video, and with that, let's see how the industry trade is trying to frame Kathleen Kennedy's long overdue departure. The ultimate source for this news is Puck, which writes Kathleen Kennedy to step down at Lucasfilm. After a mixed 13-year run, the legendary movie producer has informed Disney, as well as friends and associates, that she will exit as Lucasfilm president by the end of the year. And good riddance to that, for she has managed to destroy both Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and even Willow during her tenure. Though it should be noted that nothing canonically happened with Willow, as the Willow revival starring lesbian girl bosses, also featuring Willow in a minor guest role, was actually pulled from Disney Plus, stricken from canon, and will never officially be seen ever again anywhere. It exists now only as a memory, out there on the high seas, where no one is even bothering pirating it. But how the industry trade is framing this is important, because that sets the stage for how it is okay to publicly talk about Queen Kathy, as Leslie Headland called her, in public.
Please, Queen Kathleen Kennedy.
Let's therefore move away from Puck, even though they did break the story, so kudos to them for that, and see how much attention the corporate industry trade gives her past success, which she siphoned off of her husband and his creative partners, versus her own failure as studio head. In their piece, Lucasfilm boss Kathleen Kennedy expected to retire this year. The prolific producer has presided over the Star Wars and Indiana Jones franchise through ups and downs since 2012. The Hollywood Reporter writes, Kennedy joined Lucasfilm in 2012 as co-chair alongside Star Wars creator George Lucas, and a few months later took the reins after Disney paid $4 billion for the company and Lucas exited. Oh wow, they begin with Lucasfilm, her greatest failure. That is not great for Kathy. They continue. She relaunched the franchise, beginning with J.J. Abrams' Star Wars The Force Awakens, which grossed more than $2 billion globally and reinvigorated the property as a big screen brand. Disney released a Star Wars film every year from 2015 to 2019, and then took a pause following Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, which received a mixed response and earned just half of what Force Awakens had brought in just a few years earlier. That right there is the Hollywood Reporter in a polite way stating that Disney pulled back, because in those 4 years, Kennedy lost them half the audience. While this is not explicitly stated, every single reader in the target audience of this piece knows that the audience is supposed to grow. If the first movie did $2 billion, then if things were done right, the final movie of the sequel trilogy should have done $2.5 billion, or even $3 billion. Instead, half the audience checked out in those 4 years, so obviously something went very, very wrong here.
Let the past die. Kill it, if you have to.
It's dead.
But they don't belabor that point. Instead, they move on. Problem is, there is nothing other than more failure to move on to. The article continues. As Lucasfilm boss, Kennedy held one of the most visible and scrutinized jobs in Hollywood, and it was not always smooth sailing. She fired Chris Lord and Phil Miller as directors of Solo: A Star Wars Story in the middle of production. The film went on to be the first Star Wars movie to lose money theatrically, but it won't be the last, wait and see. She also sidelined Rogue One, A Star Wars Story director Gareth Edwards, replacing him with Tony Gilroy, who was brought on to oversee reshoots. That film became a $1 billion hit. Other projects were promised that never materialized, such as Rian Johnson's trilogy, and another one overseen by Game of Thrones showrunners T.B. Benioff and David Weiss. Daisy Ridley's upcoming return to Star Wars has been languishing in development since being announced to fanfare almost 2 years ago. This is the kindest, gentlest description of events the Hollywood Reporter possibly could provide, and these were still only the most obvious of the obvious bullet points. No mention of Patty Jenkins, no mention of Kevin Feige, no mention of Taika Waititi, no mention of the Galactic Star Cruiser, the many Disney Plus failures, the Acolyte being cancelled, and lest we forget, them gaslighting the fanbase as toxic in the press, when clearly the only toxicity around is the one in Lucasfilm premises. Are there really no more good news here? Well, the publication tries. But even as Star Wars struggled to return to the big screen, the franchise found newfound life on Disney+, with The Mandalorian launching in November 2019 along with the streaming service. It became a breakout hit, spawning multiple spin-offs, including the critically acclaimed Andor. I like how they say critically acclaimed. I bet they would love to call it a hit, but they can't because it was a flop that hardly anyone saw, even though the few who did liked it. Because they very strategically neglected to mention that all of the Mando spin-offs were underperformers, and so was Season 3 of Mando itself. Because that's another thing not brought up here, the firing of Gina Carano and how that ruined not only Jon Favreau's roadmap, but it turned the audience against Lucasfilm and set the stage for a lawsuit that's going to be very, very ugly for all of Disney. To their credit though, about the Disney Plus series, they do state that they had one thing in common, namely that they failed to hit the zeitgeist and sparked worries of diluting the Star Wars brand. Ouch. This article is not good for Kathleen Kennedy. Is there anything positive in here? Well, there is this. Kennedy's storied career includes work with Steven Spielberg and husband Frank Marshall, with collaborations including Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T., Gremlins, The Color Purple, The Goonies, Empire of the Sun, Who Framed Roger Rabbit and the Back to the Future trilogy, and the Indiana Jones films, which concluded with last year's Dial of Destiny. Incidentally, the only one she directly oversaw, and the only one to flop in a spectacular manner. In all, she has produced or executive produced more than 70 films and been nominated for 8 Oscars. Yeah, that would be all those movies where she was merely along for the ride, and it would appear that the Hollywood Reporter is perfectly aware of that as well, as they bury that stuff, the only good stuff she has ever been involved with, towards the very end of the article, because all of that would have happened with or without her. She was only along for the ride, but not a vital creative component in any of it. The destruction of Lucasfilm and all its properties though, that is all on her. Many will no doubt hope and try to tell themselves and others that Kennedy will be remembered for the 80s movies where she was along for the ride. But no, her real legacy is epitomized in this meme.
Put a chick in it, make her gay!
That right there is what Kathleen Kennedy will be remembered for. For being an activist first, for creatively compromising the properties she was but a temporary custodian for in the name of the causes she championed, and for hiring activists that weren't up to the job at hand simply because they had the right immutable characteristics or ideological conviction. The end result of her management and vision was creative and fiscal havoc. Because of Kathleen Kennedy's decision-making, Disney has, by all accounts, still not earned back the $4.05 billion they paid for Lucasfilm, and the brands she managed will never return to their former glory. Honestly, she might as well have stayed with the company at this point, as she already left it a smoking ruin. There's nothing left to burn, and who knows if anything can be built from the ashes. Let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments, and before you go, remember to secure your privacy with Surfshark VPN. Use our link surfshark.com/midnight to get an exclusive special offer of 4 extra months for free. Surfshark also offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk in trying it out at surfshark.com/midnight. Link is in the description.